Today, I stand on behalf of 26 electric cooperatives that serve from the mountains to the coast. They're private, not-for-profit organizations that are owned by the people they serve. It's a unique business model in the United States and in North Carolina, but we have several. Our credit unions and Weaver Street and other wonderful cooperatives that serve many of our members across this great state. We have a mission as electric cooperatives to provide a better quality of life. Now, we're an electric company. You think our mission would be to sell electrons. We certainly want to do that, but electric cooperatives are a little different because they do want to create a better quality of life in the communities that we serve. In order to do that, and we've heard from Kelly and other speakers about what that needs to look like and what that should and does look like in many of our communities, is to demonstrate innovation by doing. We hear the word innovation a lot. Kelly mentioned that. But when you have to demonstrate it, it's different. And the electric cooperatives are demonstrating that by being the first to have a microgrid, which provides more resiliency in responding to storms, to have the first to use community solar, so everyone has access to solar, whether they own a business or a home or not, to have battery storage as another opportunity for new technology that can really change a lot of things for rural North Carolina, to provide portals so consumers can see the energy they use and manage their energy costs, which we are the first to do here in North Carolina, and to have pay-as-you-go for those consumers that may not be able to do a deposit or that are paid in a way that they want to pay as they use electricity, as opposed to receiving a bill at the end of the month that creates stress for them and their families. We're here to do a lot of different things, but one of the things we want to do is drive thought leadership. We've heard a little bit about that today. Electric cooperatives are part of that fabric in your local communities, including my friends at Brunswick Community College, to be able to drive that thought leadership to make life better. Today, I have an opportunity to do something that I'm real excited about, is have young people be able to talk to us about what they're doing and their thought leadership and innovation. I get to introduce our moderator today, James Ford. James is an award-winning educator and now a consultant after teaching world history and becoming Teacher of the Year for the state of North Carolina in 2014-15 school year. He is the Charlotte Magazine Charlottarian of the Year. He is now working with the North Carolina Center for Public Policy Research, and he's the former program director for Public School Forum of North Carolina. He is a husband and a father. He's an activist and a writer, and he's also a minister. And so we look forward to hearing from the young people that are on the panel today, and my friend Dan. I did that on purpose. I had to have a little fun.
Shots fired.
That intentional work that then creates thought, word, and deed. So please welcome James Ford in the panel this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you so much for that introduction. I'm especially excited to be here. And just like most of you, I think we have a stellar panel, and I look forward to passing the microphone over to them to hear their insights and their thoughts, but especially because of the focus of this program and this event, which is really, I think, about the creation of opportunity. As mentioned, I enjoyed a career as an educator in Charlotte Mecklenburg schools, and as a classroom teacher, I always sort of tried to make it my business to help my young people overcome obstacles that showed up in the classroom but really began much sooner than them setting foot on campus. Obstacles that really were permeated and began in community, that had a lot to do with the systems and structures that prevented young people from truly shining their best and their brightest. And I thought that I had accomplished that. And when I became North Carolina State Teacher of the Year, I had the good fortune of traveling all throughout the state of North Carolina. And I'm a transplant from Illinois, so I realized that Charlotte is not really North Carolina. True statement. And so as I left the boundaries of Mecklenburg County, I got introduced from the west to the east to the north and to the south, just the richness and the great things that existed. But I also got introduced to other obstacles and other barriers, and I recognized that all do not have the same level of opportunity. And so this really is a conversation about equity. There's been a national study, many of you have heard about that, of social and economic mobility. And Charlotte has received a lot of attention. I've been personally involved in those efforts in reshaping the economic mobility narrative there. But most of the attention has been focused on the urban centers throughout the state. And the truth of the matter is, there are several other obstacles that exist in the rural pockets of our state as well. Infrastructure, from education to transportation to employability, et cetera. And the truth of that matter is, we ought not define those rural pockets necessarily by their deficits, but we have to look at the strengths and the good things that are happening there. And that's why I'm especially excited to have our panelists here today. We have several leaders in the field, but most importantly, if I could say, we have young people here. And so whereas, and that includes you too, Dan, I'm not gonna. Whereas this conversation will lend itself to some of our leaders, and I'll introduce our panelists in just a moment to talk about the good work that they're doing. We're really interested in hearing from the youth about the wonderful work that they're involved in. So without further ado, I'll introduce some of our panelists. So we'll start with Dan Gerlach, who is the president of Golden Leaf Foundation. And since October 2008, he served as the president at Golden Leaf. Since its inception, Golden Leaf has awarded over 1,500 grants totaling more than $763 million to nonprofits and governmental entities. Mr. Gerlach joined the board in 2008. Prior to that, he was a budget analyst in New York State Assembly for 5 years. He spent 7 years as the director of the NC Budget and Tax Center and 7 years as the senior fiscal advisor for Governor Easley. Served on a dozen commissions from budget, tax, agriculture, economic development, and he formerly served on the NC Network of Grantmakers Board of Directors, currently is actively involved in his church. And we have Chase Comer, who is a senior at NC State University, majoring in environmental science and also minors in biology and extension of education. He's involved in student government as a senator, serves as a student representative on the university committee for Council of Athletics. He's a product of Eastern North Carolina in Williamston. And is a first-generation college student. And he serves on the tourism and development as a tourism and development ambassador in Martin County, and the director for Main Street Market, a community festival and farmers market. Upon graduation, he plans to pursue a career in education, whoop, whoop, in rural North Carolina. He believes in educating future leaders of our great state. And we have, if I can get my notes in order, Mr. Scott Marlow, who is now the Senior Policy Specialist at the Rural Advancement Foundation International, also known as RAFI. It's a nonprofit organization in Pittsboro, North Carolina. Scott used to serve as the Executive Director there in RAFI's Farm Sustainability Program, providing in-depth financial counseling to farmers in crisis, education on disaster assistance programs, access to credit, and addressing the needs of mid-scale farmers who are increasing the sustainability of their farms by transitioning to higher value specialty markets. Scott's specialty is financial infrastructure, including access to credit, risk management, and how that infrastructure addresses food security and global climate change. Thank you for being with us, Scott. And then we have Tenita Solanto. Did I pronounce that correctly? If I messed it up, please disabuse me. Who is a Navy veteran and a serial entrepreneur. Yeah, please, thank you. Thank you for your service. She's also a serial entrepreneur who owns 2 businesses, most notably the Green Panda Farms, a farm that focuses on growing healthy superfoods for customers and solving business solutions. She's an IT and administrative company that helps others reach their business goals by providing IT and administrative duties so that they can fully function as a growing business. And he has served 4.5 years in the Navy as an electronic technician repairing satellite and radar systems. And then we have, pardon me, Noran. Sorry, Noran from Growing Change. Noran is a product of Laurinburg. He received his BS in biology at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Go Hills, I suppose. And he completed his Master's of Science, Master's of Social Work at Virginia Commonwealth University, earning a leadership award for his advocacy for students with disabilities. Additionally, he was honored as a winner of the national contest statepolicy.org for his role in the passage of mental health parity in Virginia. In 2000, Noran returned to his hometown to provide health care for his mother. Since then, he has also been the recipient of International Echo and Green Awards. If you are familiar with that, he is the only person to receive that award to focus exclusively on rural United States. He's also a Soros Justice Fellow for his innovative approach to working with youth in the correctional system, and he was also awarded the Innovate to Empower Fellowship, to which he was hosted in the Netherlands as a model for other nations throughout the United Nations as well. And for our students, we have, for our final student rather, we have Derrick Cummings, who works with, forgive me for the names, you all, Noran. And he's one of the original members of Growing Change Youth Leadership Team that he began working with this group in 2011. He is 18 years old, and he is from Hoke County. And so we look very much forward to hearing all of the wonderful things that they have to add for today. So we'll begin by allowing each of our adult members to kind of talk about their program. We'll afford you about 7 minutes to tell us and give us an overview of the work that you do and how it contributes to change.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Gerlach. I guess I'm ancient. I serve as president of the Golden Leaf Foundation. I'm the second president. The first was a woman you heard from last night, Valeria Lee. Valeria Lee was one of the great, since in the 22 years I've been in North Carolina, is one of the great philanthropic leaders, one of the great thought leaders, one of the great, most passionate advocates of all of our people in all of the diversity that makes North Carolina wonderful. And I had to succeed her. And so I think of my friend Patrick Woody, who had to succeed Billy Ray Hall. And I know how tough that is, Patrick, to succeed somebody who's cared so passionately, to carry on that mantle, to take the team that Billy Ray built that was incredibly talented, including you, including people like my colleagues Ted Lord and Mark Sorrells, who are here with us, and many others who aren't here, to help do that talent and get the most out of them and inspire them. You, sir, have done a great job, a masterful job, and I'm just so grateful for your service and your friendship. The foundation, since its earliest days, and Bill Friday liked the Roll Center. Bill Friday was the first chairman of our board, and Bill Friday, if he could get every dollar he could to the University of North Carolina system, he would. And so our foundation is here to transform the economy of rural, tobacco-dependent, economically distressed areas of our state. That is our mission. We do so in a variety of ways. We do so with projects that are immediately here where we can create jobs right away, that pay decent wages, provide decent benefits to help grow these communities and diversify their economy. We help provide in the medium range for the human and physical infrastructure. We put money into digital learning, into workforce training, into water and sewer, into many other things to help build the foundations for economic development, such as the Rural Center has advocated for so well and so long. But mainly, one of the things that we've done since the beginning, since Bill Friday thought this was important and the rest of the board too, was how do we provide help to young people from rural North Carolina to afford to go to our great public and private colleges within the borders of our state. Because he reasoned that tobacco put a lot of us through college, including himself, and so he thought it should continue in that spirit to do so with the proceeds from the Master Settlement Agreement through which we're funded. So since our earliest days, we have provided scholarship money to both the 4 years and 2 year programs, but the 4 year program is $3,000 a year, up to $12,000. And when I got there, that's what we did, and that was good, it was beneficial, and it helped people who needed help. but it was not sufficient. And to build on that program, what we did about 7 years ago now is we went into partnership with the Center for Creative Leadership to help provide a leadership development program and an internship program for some of our scholars who wanted to go back to rural North Carolina, who had deep roots, had some need, but wanted to give back to their communities. We don't force them to do so because we haven't done a good enough job of creating all the opportunities we can. But what we are doing is we're providing how many of y'all have ever got a grant for the Golden Leaf Foundation? Raise your right hand. All right, so you know that we're easy to get along with, no compliance issues, just easy peasy. We just put the money in a brown paper bag and let you have it. It's all good. We do not do any of that. I mean, we're tough on y'all. And the thing is about rural North Carolina that has been said throughout a theme from Vivian Howard onward in this conference, is I believe in two things. One is we believe that these young people deserve all they can be, deserve that all the investment we can help to help them transform themselves and to become the people that God created them to be, and to lead the communities that they come from if they choose to do so. We also have high expectations of them. So in April, when we award these grants, in May, I'm off traveling to every high school I can find in rural North Carolina, and I look these young people, Mark does this as well, and I know he does the same thing, is we look them in the eye and say, we're giving you a grant. Now that comes with responsibility. Your responsibility is we want you to go to college, we want you to finish college, we want you to think about coming back. But in addition to scholarship, wait, there's more. I'm a game show host. We will provide you this opportunity, not you, ma'am, but I'm just pointing at you because you're close, the leadership and economic development opportunity to go and build these skills, right? Because when they travel to Chapel Hill and to Greenville and to Raleigh and to other places, a lot of our urban areas, they're like, nobody knows where I come from. Nobody has any idea of what I'm doing. What the hell am I doing here? And they worry a little bit, as Vivian told you yesterday, are we good enough? And the answer is, yes, they're good enough. They may not have had the networks, they may not have had the financial support from their communities who just don't have the wherewithal to do it, but they are good enough. And when we put our might into showing them, they're like Vivian or like you or Miss Ryan or anybody else. They're like, God, there's nothing to do here. Everything sucks. It's just horrible. And the reason why they think everything sucks and everything's horrible is because they're 18 years old. But when they go back to rural North Carolina and they get an internship and they get paid money from us to help do that, then all of a sudden, wait a minute, hold on. There's something for me to do back here. And Chase is going to tell you a little bit more about that. But then we see here are opportunities. And so what happens? One, graduation rates go up. Two is that once they get work-based learning, they make some connections and often come back and make some money and get jobs in the communities from which they came. Three is they see the opportunities and appreciate the places that they came from a little bit more. Those are worthy goals. Those are worthy accomplishments. And that's some of the stuff that we're on the pathway to do. And so that, I see you with your 1 minute remaining. And so that's an exciting opportunity, but it is high expectations of this, because at the end of the day, a lot of these people want to get in these fields, and healthcare is our number one. I want these young people to be the ones who, if my parents, God forbid, have a healthcare problem, if my child has a healthcare problem, I want them to be the ones who take care of them. I want them to be the ones who teach my grandchildren. Because apparently I'm too old to have children anymore. And others. I want them to be the ones who lead my business and lead my community because I believe in them. Because the greatest lie that we tell ourselves is that the next generation is not going to be as successful as the one we enjoy right now. It is bullshit. And I have had enough of it. Edit that out of the tape later. But here's the thing. If we don't convince them, if we don't have faith in them, then why should they have faith in themselves? I thank you for your attention.
It's a strong opening. Scott, you care to follow that one up? Do we need to plug our ears or we good?
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Scott Marlow. I work with the Rural Advancement Foundation International. No, we're not that kind of foundation. We're usually on the receiving end rather than the granting end, even though I'm going to talk to you today about one of the things that we do give away some money on. I want to thank the Rural Center and all the staff for the great partnership over time, the opportunity to be here. I especially want to thank Dan for being the target of all of the old jokes. And and sparing the rest of us. Our organization works on a wide range of issues. We work all the way from the very local individual farms in our communities and across the state, all the way to national and international policy and other issues. We try to work as systemically as we can. We work on market-based solutions, mechanisms for farmers to be rewarded in the marketplace for the good things that they do, things like the integrity of the organic label. We have a social justice label that we've been working on with partners for about 15 years called Food Justice Certified, that's in Whole Foods across the country. We work on fairness and lending and contracts and things like that, making sure that farmers have some level of power to negotiate contracts and licensing agreements with the multinational corporations that they have to negotiate with, and that people have the opportunity to know what the heck is in that thing that they just signed, and for people to know where those pieces are. The three projects that we're best known for in North Carolina is our Come to the Table project, which is a long time, it's about 10 or 12 years old. Gatherings of food, faith, and farms. The concept is that addressing poverty and food insecurity in one community should not increase poverty and food security in another community. That shallow analysis divides, but deep analysis unites. And so that is a process of bringing those communities together to find deeper and deeper analysis, to find collaborative solutions. The second of our projects is our farm advocacy program. This one goes back to the 1980s farm crisis, which is very intensive financial counseling for farmers in crisis. We have a hotline once or twice a week, and for about 15 years I was the person answering that phone call. We have someone who calls and says, I just got my notice of foreclosure, they're coming for my equipment on Friday, what do I do? And we have two people we sit out and sit at the kitchen table and go through the shoe boxes of receipts and keep that family in their home and on the farm. And we have about a 90% save rate. Wow. And that's not me. And I got to say really straight up, that's not me. We got a guy who's been doing this since 1983 who's brilliant. I don't take credit for it, it's all his, and I have the privilege of following him around and saying, what can I do for you? The project that we're here to talk about, though, is our Ag Reinvestment Fund. It used to be called the Tobacco Communities Reinvestment Fund. This is a project that is based on the radical concept that farm folks are smart. Coming out of the tobacco transition, one of the things that we learned out of a series of interviews and surveys of tobacco farmers was that the money that was coming to the state for the tobacco settlement and the buyout money that was coming for quota was not going into new enterprises. It was going into servicing old debt and sometimes retirement, but it was not available to folks to create new enterprises. And we knew that there was not something else in the ag commodities market that was going to serve the role that tobacco had served over time. This program is very small scale cost share grants, $8,000, $10,000. At one point, it was up to $20,000 for farm groups. Now it's up to $12,000 this year, and I'm glad to say we are announcing the next round of this. The applications will be due in January. This year, the direct farm grants will be $9,000. Over the last 20 years, we've given away $5.1 million in these grants. Our job creation numbers, we figure that it's about a job created for every $1,600 spent, which, if you look at some of the big buffalo hunt numbers, blows them out of the water. On almost every grant, farmers invest out of pocket at least the same amount that they are granted, usually significantly more. We spoke earlier about cultural change. One of the most rewarding things for us is people who come back years and years later and say, you know, that project that you gave me a grant for, it didn't really work out, but God, it started me down this entrepreneurship. And I didn't make that one work, but I made the next one work, or I made the one after that work, and now I'm doing this. We have folks that we gave a grant to create a food truck that turned it into a restaurant that now are employing large numbers of people. We've done wacky stuff. The grant program is based on three concepts. One is it has to be innovative. Don't come in wanting to do pick your own strawberries or a roadside stand. If you're doing something that's truly innovative, that's what this is for. The second thing is it's about money. It has to put money in someone's pocket. We get a lot of people who come to us saying, I want to do this educational thing, I want to do something that's it has to show money in farmers' pockets. And the third thing is it has to be replicable. You have to be willing. So we've had people come and want a grant and say, yeah, but I don't want to tell anybody what I did. It's like, and this is not for you. You have to do outreach. You have to share lessons learned. It has to be something that brings more people into that market and is opening up new markets for our rural communities and our agricultural entrepreneurship. We have funded, what we love is people who come in and say, you know, I've been driving tractor and thinking. You know, I've been thinking. I had a guy who came up to me, we were at an outreach event for a person who was doing pastured pork, and he had created this very interesting way of managing his animals and keeping them, and he came to me and he said, you know, I started thinking about this project when I was in high school, but I've never been able to put the money together to actually get the stuff to try it, and this is giving me that shot. We came into promoting youth backwards. We came in working with older farmers and farmers who are transitioning, and what we realized was that all of our grants and in our farm advocacy work, the people who are really making the transitions work and the entrepreneurship work were the next generation who are coming back to the farm. We're the young folks who are bringing their creativity and their new ideas and coming back and saying, no, I'm not going to do it the way my dad and my granddad did it. And that's been an extraordinary, I mean, I will fully admit, that was not how we got in, but it's been a fascinating lesson in how this has worked. If we look at systemically what needs to happen, what we do is we take some of the risk away from creativity and entrepreneurship. What we hear from farm families all the time is, I cannot stub my toe. If I make any mistake, I'm out. And that's what this project and these types of, we're here to say that this is a huge and worthy investment, that small scale dollars make a huge difference in job creation, and people have to have the ability to fail and learn lessons and get up and move forward without losing everything. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Scott. Tenita, would you like to jump in, or?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So, y'all, I moved back home in 2000. So to Scotland County, Robeson County, Hope County. If you go south from here, you know that angle between North and South Carolina? That points right to us. That's the reason that's there, is to point to Scotland, Robeson, Hope County. And I moved back as a newlywed with my Southern Californian wife to rural North Carolina. Now, she was a vegetarian, moving into a county that had more hogs in it than people. And we weren't just moving back. We were moving back home to take care of my mother, who was an Alzheimer's victim. So that meant we were moving back into the modest brick rancher that I grew up in Laurinburg, North Carolina, to provide home care for my mother. So good news, bad news. The good news is we're still married.
That's good news.
The bad news is she's no longer a vegetarian. I'm just saying. We're in the land of barbecue. Moving back as a mental health therapist, I was stunned to find that growing up in an area that always had a series of challenges, things had actually become more difficult. Now, many of us in the room share some similar statistics. But in 2015, Scotland County had the highest unemployment in the state. In our region, we have some of the highest generational poverty in the rural southeast. Neighboring Lumberton in 2014 was determined per ratio to be the poorest city in the nation for mid-sized cities. If you look at the Robert Wood Johnson assessment trending, our county and Robeson County, Columbus County, counties in our region struggle. We are some of the lowest ranked counties of the 100 counties in our health determinations. And Robeson County's violent crime rate was only beaten by Scotland County's violent crime rate. So those were the stats that we were up against. More importantly for me as a mental health therapist, I was losing entirely too many young people to the correctional system, to the adult correctional system for terminal incarceration, or worse. Coming from working in urban areas where I had more resources at hand, I knew that many of these young people could and should be able to be diverted from that kind of future. So we began working with young people that were kicked out of home, kicked out of school, and put on probation at the age of 14 or below. You see, in my work, we call that the unholy trinity of risk factors, put across the landscape of poverty, This is your highest risk group. These are the young men upon which the adult prison system is being built. And through our program, we helped these young people grow into the leaders that will help us change our grim outcomes. We're growing change. And growing change is reclaiming and transforming a closed prison in Scotland County, North Carolina, turning it into a sustainable farm in order to form a national model to answer the new question of what to do with old prisons. That's a significant question for North Carolina. North Carolina used more forced prison labor than any other state in the nation to build our road systems. We had the largest number of prisons. We incarcerated the largest ratio of our population in 1980. And that story had never been told until Derrick and a group of young people worked with PhDs from the good University of North Carolina, Greensboro's Museum Studies program to tell that story. So we're reclaiming, attaining, and sustaining. We're reclaiming opportunities for troubled youth. We are attaining education for returning veterans, and we're sustaining personal and environmental wellness for our besieged community to form a national model that we will then give away to the other 23 communities in North Carolina that has an abandoned prison. So for me, thank you. So we have a video that my leadership team, my youth leadership team, put together with the University of North Carolina, Pembroke. They told me I better show you this video. So here we go. You don't think of closed prisons as inspiring hope, but one closed prison in rural North Carolina will transform lives.
Everyone in this youth pilot program was involved in juvenile justice, and we're headed to prison. But through this group, we have reversed our futures and flipped our prisons.
Now we're community leaders, feeding the hungry, providing education about sustainable agriculture, and starting our own businesses.
We are flipping this prison in Wagram, North Carolina into a sustainable farm and education center, so that way our program can help other kids who need help just like we did.
We're going to flip this drain field into the largest vermiculture bed in the region.
We're going to convert this PT field into a sports and recreation area.
These old tanks will become biofuel production labs.
This guard tower will become our climbing wall, our repelling station, and our water tower. We're gonna flip these front cell blocks into fish tanks that pump their waste.
Into an aquaponic greenhouse that will filter and recycle the water back into the fish tanks.
I'm Noran Sanford, founder of growingchange.org. We're flipping closed prisons into sustainable farms and valuable resource centers, serving our whole community. To find out more about what you can do to help, join us at our website, growingchange.org.
Join us. Flip the prison.
Our 5-year longitudinal program, our youth pilot program, was 92% effective in preventing young people from going into the adult prison system who were headed to that or worse over a 5-year period. Now, we have a slogan, we have really a mantra in our organization, and it is, you better be able to tell your story. Why?
Because if you don't tell it, somebody else will tell it and they'll get it wrong.
That's right.
So for far too long, rural North Carolina's story has been told by other people, and they've been getting it wrong. So now, what is the headlines coming out of our area? A national model for what to do with closed prisons. You've seen the success in Pembroke, North Carolina. We are retaking that story, and everybody in this room has a common story to tell of success. Thank you.
Well, thank you, each of you, and I think I speak for everybody when I say this is incredibly inspiring work. And you know, what I see is a common theme amongst all of you. I've heard you all say something about the youth, and I think that all social change, no matter what we're talking about, no matter what the issue is, it's typically young people who are the ones who position and power that movement. So I'd like to talk to the youth just for a moment and the participants. And I want to ask you just to kind of tell us, why did you get involved in your respective programs? And tell us what your hopes were initially and what you feel on this side of it.
Sure. So my name is Chase. Originally, I got into Golden Leaf, obviously, for the money. I mean, that was the first thing I heard our guidance counselor told us. They said there's this really good scholarship out there. A lot of times it's great for first-generational college students, so it's something I applied for. The more I read about it, the more I saw kind of the leadership aspects. When I was accepted, I found out about the leadership program, and it was something that I thought was unique comparative to a lot of different other scholarships that I received. And it was just something that I thought that could kind of help us see the career that we really wanted to do. So I kind of got involved more so just to see where it would take me. And from freshman year of college to now, I'm a completely different person. It's just the opportunities that it's given me is basically each summer I've been able to work back in a rural community and get paid through the Golden Leaf leadership program. And being able to get paid through them and being able to do things that you enjoy. Sometimes a lot of the things that would give me experience wouldn't necessarily pay in my hometowns or wouldn't pay in rural communities. So I would stay up in Raleigh. I would go minimum wage job somewhere, but actually I was able to work at nonprofits. I was able to work at a high school as an intern. I was able to do things that actually propelled me to my further career. And while all these experiences I was doing, I also got to talk to other people and say, hey, look at what I'm doing. You should do it too. You should get involved in this program. And just being able to see the impact it had on me, I think that a lot of people benefit from it as well. So.
That's tremendous. So it's no longer about the money is what I'm hearing you say.
It's no longer about the money. It's about the experiences.
Awesome, awesome.
Hi, I'm Tenita Solanto, and so I'm a farmer now. I came from an IT background and worked in IT for a while and started what you heard was my first business, was Solvers Business Solutions, working with IT and business admin for businesses. Went to a minority landowners conference and got inspired about farming. Didn't know anything about farming, but after that conference, I knew I wanted to farm. So saw the importance of, it was a lot of older farmers there, and seeing the importance of just learning what farming was and how important it was to pass that on to the next generation. So not even being able to grow a house plant, went home and started learning, teaching myself how to farm, and created Green Panda Farms. And so as I began to build my business, I was looking for funding on how do I build a farm, how can I grow my business. I started it as a home business and came across RAFI and their grant program. So I applied for their grant last year. And since that time, I've been able to take my business from my home business to a location in Siler City. I have an 1,800 square foot facility where I grow microgreens and microherbs. I'm a little bit different than your average farmer because I am an indoor farmer. So I try to take my IT background and put it into farming and kind of help out with that process. So with the grant, I was able to take this 1,800 square foot building and upfit it, and you know, we have our lights, our controlled air system, and our plants and everything, and we grow in there. So we're hoping to take this farm and reach out to the school systems and have them come and pass on the knowledge that we're learning about farming and how to grow things and how important it is to grow food. So with the RAFI grant, I mean, without that grant, I couldn't have moved into this building and accelerated my business as fast as I have now. And yeah, that's...
Yeah, so it's changed your life effectively.
It's changed a lot now. So I've gone from doing IT full-time to now I'm a full-time farmer and, you know, trying to expand and get into different markets and just learn about what I can do, and also, you know, giving back to the community and be able to contribute to the education about farming as well.
From houseplants to indoor herbs, it's amazing.
Pretty much.
Derrick, talk to us about your involvement. How'd you get involved?
Good afternoon. My name is Derrick, and how I got involved with Noran is, at a young age, I would say about 13. I come across some charges in the court system, and I had a mandated therapy group, and Noran was my therapist, and he pitched an idea to me one day of going to community garden in Laurinburg. So that went off pretty well, and then one day we was working and he pitched an idea to me about flipping old prison in Wagram into a sustainable farm. And I was thinking to myself, this man's crazy. It's never going to work. So we wouldn't really, go to the prison too often. We would mainly work at the garden. But now we more moved on the site working at the prison. And when he would tell me, I would say it was around 2014, 2015. He said by 2017, 2018, everything will be up and running. I was like, wow, that's a long time from now. And now that I look back on it, it was like time just flew by.
So all these are amazing stories, and all you are on-ramped at very different points in time. You all come from different communities. I kind of wonder, has your involvement in the program, has it increased your connectedness to a community? It's one thing to be from an area, right? You were kind of talking earlier, Dan, about saying there's nothing to do. But then as a part of your participation in this program, have you felt a greater connection to the localities, the rural, either the areas that you're from or the areas that you lived in as a result of your involvement in these programs?
Sure. So the idea that there's nothing to do, that's something that I've heard from almost every one of my peers throughout high school, and I honestly, like, when you become a high school senior and you're thinking you're getting excited about college, and you're just hearing from everyone, and there's like, yeah, there's nothing to do, we're ready to get out of the town, let's go away, and a lot of them says that, well, we really don't want to come back, there's nothing to do. Well, the thing that we realized, and the Golden Leaf has helped us realize, is if there's nothing to do, then you do it. Then you come back, then you make that change, and then people actually come back. So they've taught through the program I'm in is the leadership of yourself. So basically the first year is learning who you are. What are you good at? What do you need to improve on? The next thing is working with others. So it's working with teams, making those connections. At Golden Leaf, the leadership program, we're really a family overall. I guess Dan's our granddad from everything that we've talked about.
Scott's enjoying this right now.
But he really is. He's the first day I met him, he told me everything about me and where I was from and the mayor of the town I was beside, and I was like, how does this guy know all this stuff? But he does truly care about all of us. And the last part that we really talked about in our year 3 program is changing our community. So taking everything that we know, all the connections that we have, going back to our hometowns and actually making the connections. And my hometown's been completely supportive. And it's just the programs that we've done. I was able to do a kind of a community farmers market that kind of partnered some of our local bands and partnered some local farmers and a lot of new and small businesses. We wanted to kind of increase the community involvement during the summer and just kind of get families coming back and getting youth kind of excited about actually the things that we offer in our town. So just through our program and connections that I've made through the program and back home, it's really been really successful.
It's amazing.
So for me, since I've relocated to the Siler City area because of Green Panda, it's been quite a change for me coming from Raleigh. I grew up in Aberdeen, Pinehurst area. It was a small town similar to Siler City, and again, going back to there's nothing to do here type feel. We're hoping to take the Green Panda space and do things to create things to do within the community to bring the community together. There's a little difference between Pittsboro and Siler City. There's a little bit more events that are there, and they're not that far apart. So I'm hoping to take some of those events and bring the community together, whether we're advocating for food or whether we're just doing yoga in the park or something like that. We have a space that I think will be great to allow people to come together, and I guess that we're looking forward to being a part of that. So that's kind of more of the feel. And I've also been reaching out to leaders within the community and getting connected that way. And I feel like the farming aspect has kind of pushed me to do that. I've had to see who's at the farmer's market. I had to see who's, who's into buying the local food and things like that in that movement. So being more connected is something I've definitely had to do.
Awesome. How about you, Derrick?
Well, for me, pretty much like what they were saying, there's nothing really to do where I'm from. And there's nothing really to do with where I'm from but go to school, come home, go outside. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of having a a brain block here at the moment.
No, you're fine.
For me, this group is, I've got more connected to the community because not only has my name been put out there in a good way, my communities group has, my organization has, and because of them, I've had numerous opportunities I would never have. Just recently, in this past April, I went to MIT up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and presented the first history exhibit on field camp prison errors. So to me, that's kind of a big deal where I'm from.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal where all of us are from.
Yeah. Because where I come from, that's not a general college that you would get accepted to. Maybe, you know, the local community college. So it gives me a good feeling to know that I'm doing things that other people from my community would never have the opportunity to do.
That's amazing. When you talk about, you know, your name being changed, right, and people, you know, your name being put out there in a positive way, that's huge. Have each of you all, and you all can feel to jump in, have each of you all felt embraced? And some of this takes a long time for folks to adjust to. I mean, when you talk about growing herbs indoor, or you talk about flipping prisons, like, has the community and the leadership there, have they caught on to the paradigm shift yet, or is it one of those things where it's going to take a while? Like, so kind of talk to us about the level of support that you all have had from local leaders and community folk in terms of kind of connecting on to the idea of creating things where there aren't any, or doing really new and innovative ideas that take a change in paradigm.
Sure. So I got to be a little careful because some of the Martin County people is here today, so I don't want to talk to them too bad. But they've actually been completely supportive, and it was something that I didn't know, or that was one of my reservations coming back is, are they going to accept my ideas? Are they going to think that, or are they just kind of like just throw me off to the curb? Or are they going to actually help me? Is it going to be just all on my own? Is that all I'm going to do? But it's something that they've helped involve like the youth, and also making sure to hear my ideas and then working with us. So I think it's good for a community not only to hear the ideas, but giving opportunities for a lot of youth and a lot of people in college to give back and actually start forming some programs, giving some feedback and everything, because a lot of us, we just have a bunch of ideas. Not all of them are great, but we just want to be heard, and we want to try to tell people exactly what our ideas are, and we may need a little help, resources along the way, but overall, we're just trying to kind of form something that we can do for ourselves and also give back to the community. So I think it's really important just to feel connected and wanted with it.
I guess I could say that I feel actually surprised at how much support I was able to get going into the field of farming. From the North Carolina Veteran Business Association, from RAFI, from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. Once I started tapping into the resources and the leadership within the community, I was actually pretty surprised that people were actually there to say, hey, this is how you can do this, or go talk to this person that can tell you more information about this. Yeah, so it's been great.
Awesome.
I feel like we've got tremendous support from our community, and we've got some hatred too as well. Mm-hmm. And we had we're supported by NC Cooperative Extension, Parks and Rec of Scotland County, and we had a haunted house that was 4 days long at our prison site, and we had 3,700 people to come out, and I just want to take the time to thank Mr. Chris English for helping us, Director of Chamber of Commerce, Scotland County. It makes me feel good knowing that we got all these people in the community supporting us in our idea, and we don't have people telling us, no, it's not going to work, this, that, and the third, but we have good, wholesome people in our community.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of supporters that are in the room right now, and a lot of folks I can tell who are interested in hearing more about your endeavors and your experiences. So we're going to open it up for a few minutes. If you all have any questions, there'll be a microphone traveling around. I want you all to have the opportunity to interact with our panelists. So you can just raise your hand and we'll find you. Any questions?
Not everybody.
We got one up front right here.
Well,
before the mic, this is simple and it's for Derrick. Derrick, what are your career aspirations now? Well, the first of the year, I'm going to Job Corps to become a certified welder. After that, I'm going off to the Army to become a combat engineer.
Good morning. Back here. Back.
There you go. Hey, how you doing?
This question is for Mr. Noran, or either the young man. I have a master's in criminal justice as well, and so when we talk about flipping these prisons, who do you go to pitch this idea? And certainly we'd love to have your model. So again, are you talking to our local prisons, our local law enforcement? You want to talk to our local elected officials? Or do we need to start at Congress or our legislators?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are working on the Prison Flip Toolkit based at North Carolina A&T State University is our partner for that replicable model. And that toolkit will be then distributed to the communities around rural North Carolina that have this need. When MIT recently did a master's thesis on our work, they identified us as fourth quadrant. I had no idea what that meant. But fourth quadrant is rural, low-wealth areas. And that's where a lot of these old field camps are, right? And so through North Carolina A&T, distributed through the cooperative extension system, that's how the model will be distributed as we pull that together with the support of Kellogg Foundation.
Hi, this question is for Dan and anybody else that's able to answer. Over here, Dan.
Oh, there you are.
Hand up.
Hey.
So most of the situations and examples we heard about were nonprofit based, and I'm interested to see if there's any work in our state going towards a B Corp, like benefit corporation or hybrid social enterprise, to unlock the potential for our for-profit companies to be engaged in something other than profit generation. Currently, North Carolina only has corporations and LLCs identified as profit-based entities. However, 30 other states across the nation have structures that allow corporations to do something other than generate a profit. And currently, right now, it sounds like a lot of our efforts are in the nonprofit sector. I was curious if you heard of anything in the for-profit sector to add to this conversation.
Yeah, I think a lot of our scholars are placed in the for-profit sector, depending on what their interest happens to be and the availability back in rural North Carolina. I would say on B corporations, this idea of kind of not just the profit motive of being a sole motivator, but also as community good. There's legislation pending in the General Assembly on that, but I would say to you that there's more interest in, there's more things kind of on the ground of people actually doing that than you know about. And so I think in our communities, and I think when you hear some of the community profiles and other things, you hear about that type of thing unofficially taking place. You see my friend Napoleon Wallace, with Kresge and the kind of impact investing, we don't do that, but a lot of other foundations, including Mary Reynolds Babcock, is a leader in this, about kind of how do we invest a little bit, and I think you talked about it and encourage, is how do you put some of this money back as an investment and make it work for the community good as well. So long story longer, that is more common. Just because there's not maybe a legal framework for that yet doesn't mean it's not being worked on, and in fact, it de facto happened if not de jure.
I think we have time for maybe one more question before we prepare to close the panel. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Please join me in.
No. What are you doing? Slide?
Two more questions. Okay, I apologize. I thought we were wrapping it up. Anybody have any other questions? We have a little bit of time. I'd like to leverage a question, if I could. To our youth leaders, what do you hope for the future for the localities do you work? 10, 20 years down the line, in your attempt to create change, what is your vision for the areas where you're living at in rural North Carolina?
I think an important part, especially where I'm from and from a lot of rural North Carolina areas, is you can't really be afraid of change. I think that's something that it's important to know that a lot of new ideas are going to be forming, and if you don't take a risk every now and then, it's not going to pay off in the end. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of young people is going away, because they don't see, well, there's nothing really changing, there's nothing really popping up new. So really in my community and where I came from, I really want to see a lot of youth returning, a lot of programs and activities for us. I know when I've lived in Raleigh for a few years now, going to NC State, and there's a concert every day. There's some kind of park event. There's some kind of community gathering every day, all throughout the day. So something that I really want to see in my home community is just having a platform where people can say, oh, this is going on here, this is going on here. There's so much interconnectedness that people, nobody feels left out at all. So I really think that the positive change, and I really wanted to help develop like the downtown community and making a kind of a symbol for this is our county, this is our town, and you're welcome in it. So.
Okay. Y'all want to briefly chime in?
I think what I would like to see is that for the community to source most of its food from the community versus outside of that. I think that's probably the largest change that we need to have a healthier food source, and I think food is healthier when it comes from a local source.
All right, Derrick, we'll let you get the last word, buddy.
Well, I would like to see more people my age get involved, more proactive, more community-led events for youth and upcoming youth. Something more positive instead of all this negativity of them being in the streets or violent activities. Like they should get more. I would like to see them get more involved and more positivity in the community. So we should have more youth-led events, community days, things to make them feel comfortable in the community.
So I lied, Derrick. I'm not going to let you get the last word. I'm going to let this lady right here get the last word. She wants to ask one more question before we take off.
So I serve in the Department of Agriculture in agritourism. And so I've heard each of you, there's this wonderful collective theme of a community farmers market. You leaving technology to start up this very interesting way of growing food. And then this prison concept where it's very embedded in agriculture. And my point to you guys is that this is light shining on rural North Carolina through our #1 industry, which is farming and agriculture. And you guys are taking that to the next level. And we have an opportunity to continue to shine more light on that can turn into, you guys hiring new people. It can turn into jobs and more interesting opportunities down the line. So I just want to thank you for your courage and for sharing your stories today. And on behalf of the Department of Agriculture, bless you for everything that you're doing. And Noran, it's good to see you.
I just want to say we just joined the North Carolina Agrotourist Organization. So. Good to see you again.
It's looking like we're getting the hook right now for the Sandman come sweep me off the stage. But can we join me and give them a round of applause for all of our panelists for the inspiring youth leadership.